the impact of being a foundation stone, and I think a lot of this takes inspiration from an article you wrote, Sister Gabriella, on it was on Where Peter Is, and you called it the ordinary liturgy of everyday life. Um, so let's talk about this. How does being a foundation stone not just affect you, but also affect other people? What does it accomplish? Can you give some
Well,
examples?
okay. So as recorded, John Henry Newman, um, and an impressive example, which I read years ago myself, told about a lady, a believer. I don't know whether she was Catholic or Protestant. She was definitely Christian, who was shopping at a supermarket and pushing her cart along and putting things in the cart. And another woman came up to her and said, "I want what you have." So the Christian said, push the cart toward her and said, "Sure, take anything you want." "No, no, 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 no. I don't want that. I want what you have." And after a conversation, they clarified it and found that the woman had noticed there's something different about the way you do things. And she realized, they came to understand it was her faith in Jesus. Just pushing a supermarket cart down the aisle and putting things in it. She did it in a way that stood out to that woman. And like, tossing a stone in a pond, the ripples will spread out.
Mhm. I think there are people who can very clearly intuit these sorts of things. Like you say, even just pushing a cart, another person can intuit that there's a depth there. I think you have another example as well.
Yes, this is much better known. Um, when the French Revolution broke out in 1789, originally it was intended to repair the serious problems that the society was having in France. The government was bankrupt, the people were starving, and so the government met, the States General met to rectify the problems, but it was already too late. And like a pressure cooker where the escape hole got blocked, it just blew up. And within a year or so, the whole fabric of French culture, society was being overturned. And by the following year, religious life was being shut down. They were not allowed to make solemn profession. Shortly after that, uh, religious property was confiscated. And in a town, little city, not far from Paris, known as Compiègne, there was a Carmite monastery with, I think they had 16 nuns and I think three lay sisters. And they were warned that they might be shut down at any time and expelled from the monastery. And the prioress, Mother Teresa of St. Augustine, had the inspiration to ask the sisters to vow themselves as victims for peace in France and in the church. So the whole community voted. It was a perfectly free, secret vote, and they all agreed to do this. So every day they repeated the vow, offering themselves as victims to bring peace to France and to the church. A couple of years later, they were shut down, expelled from their monastery, ordered to take off their religious habit, and not allowed to live in community or to practice their charism. So they separated and lived in apartments, about 4 nuns to an apartment. And Mother Teresa would visit them regularly, and they would do their best to continue living their Carmelite life of pondering the law of the Lord. And they continued to repeat their vow every day. And after a couple of years, they were investigated and found that they were living as religious when they had been forbidden to. So they were arrested and taken to Paris and tried as fanatics and condemned to the guillotine. Rather providentially, of course, they had been wearing their regular clothes, regular dresses. But when they were sent to the guillotine, these happened to be in the laundry, and all they had to wear was their Carmelite habits. So they went in the procession with, I think, 20 other victims, and they sang hymns all the way to the guillotine. At the guillotine, the novice, who had never been allowed to profess her vows because of the laws, finally made profession. And one by one, they went up the steps to the guillotine and were beheaded. And very unusually, the crowd was absolutely silent. Normally, during the guillotining, there were jeers and catcalls and mockery, but this time they were absolutely silent. And the nuns were guillotined one after the other, with the priors being the last. And then 10 days later, the government fell, the reign of terror ended, and a relative peace returned to France.
Oh.
You can coincidence? Possibly. But all they did was live their Carmelite life without making any show of it, and it changed history.
I got to ask for you personally then today. Apart from, we've got these beautiful martyrs being guillotined, and we have somebody pushing a cart in a supermarket. But how about you yourself? Have you interacted or met with somebody who said something similar like that to you? Like, I want what you have, maybe not to you personally, but somebody else in the community where they were impacted just by simply seeing you all do what you do.
Well, actually, very few people see us.
Mhm.
If you come to our monastery in Flemington, New Jersey, the chapel is open to the public. Anybody can come in. And you'll see a grill, a wrought iron grill, around the altar. And behind it, there are wooden folding doors. The doors are open during Mass, but the people can't see us. We can see the altar. Anybody who wants can come and speak to a nun, but you won't see her. It's very few people who actually meet us in person, but people know that we're praying for them. We're here, just as the Carmelites of Compiègne were praying for peace for the church and for France. We're here to pray for people, and people know that prayers make a difference.
Let's move into our next conversation, applying the lessons of the Carmelites and St. Teresa of Jesus. The key idea that we want to talk about next is we've talked about why it's needed. We've talked about the origin of why these ideas mattered. We've talked about the impact that even just trying to live out these ideas. Next, we're going to talk about how do you actually do it. And there's the structured life of the order, but then there's also the ordinary life of us out in the world. So we'll be back.